discussions are occasioned by the need for development or innovative finance, which arises due to the failure of the financial sector to adequately finance sustainable development. So in the development space at KCA University, we are committed to getting deeply engaged to proffer solutions through teaching, conferences, seminars, and discussions. So we believe through this, ideas can be generated, innovations can be triggered, and therefore the call for research. The Finance Discussion Series, therefore, is a continuous academic engagement program that is purposed to bring together professionals and stakeholders to deep dive into issues in their unique fields of practice. In pursuance of our commitment to contributing to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, to create Africa we want. I believe everybody wants a good Africa, Africa that can contribute to solutions in the development space. So through this approach, we initiate interactions more engagingly by giving room to exchange ideas that can help identify opportunities, deal with challenges, and build knowledge for sustainable development. Therefore, this forum, we are not only offering development finance, but participate as a major player in the larger space. In ensuring our commitment, we engage in activities that enhance development finance, promote sustainable environment, socioeconomic well-being of the people, and advocate for good governance that can help provide optimum financial effects that enhance the design and implementation of reforms and capacity building programs adopted by the development finance institutions, governments, the private sector, NGOs, and the wider emerging markets. So therefore, that's why we are here today to this event. And we look forward to gainful, meaningful discussion to this end. Thank you very much and welcome to this event today at EFI, Accounting, Finance and Economics Department, College of Business, KCA University. Thank you very much, Bwana Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we expect the Dean for his opening remarks too. Dr. Mushiri, kindly, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Maybe we can unshare. Maybe we can unshare this and, okay. First of all, I want to welcome everyone. I can see we are quite a number of us here in this forum. We are almost hitting 190, and I'm excited about this series. One of the reasons the way we started this series is after we started the program, our MSc Development Finance, we realized that there was one. Let me give you a history of actually how we started the development finance. It happened, some of us traveled to South Africa, a few of my colleagues, and we met with this professor who is at the University of Cape Town, where they were offering the program. And when at the University of Cape Town, we met with 5 Kenyans, not me, I was not there, the guys met with 5 Kenyans who actually were traveling from Kenya all the way to South Africa to do a master's in development finance. And so we thought, why can't we do this? And the then Professor Onyango, some of you may remember him, had a discussion with Professor Nicholas Biakpe, and the rest is history. We started the program with also assistance and a lot of support from June, CPA June Kivinda. I hope she's in here. And that is how we started. And then we realized that as we were moving along, we need to have we want to make a change. One of the things that we have seen is actually our students, who I want to tell you now, as we speak, they are already organized themselves, and they have created a development finance organization, which they are mobilizing to make a change, and to bring to reality whatever things that they have learned in class. And one of the things I've come to appreciate is the zeal and the energy that these people are having. Now, let's get back to this series. And thank you, Dr. Fatoki and Dr. Rotich, for putting this one together. Dr. Fatoki, you have done quite a lot of work in terms of even networking and getting people to get into this, getting people who are relevant to this topic. Thank you so much. I want also to thank our Vice Chancellor, Professor Isaiah Wakidiki, for actually accepting to grace this event. Professor, we appreciate, and at least your presence is very important, even in giving us the visibility and letting everyone out there know that KCA is a dominant force in development finance. Incidentally, when we started in this area, we were the only institution in East and Central Africa who are offering this program. Strathmore joined us recently, and there are some universities in Uganda and Tanzania that have been trying to start. Now, so we are the trailblazers. Now, to today's topic about sustainable finance, you know, there has been a 400% increase in the world population in the lifetime of baby boomers. You know, baby boomers after the Second World War. And with it has been unprecedented destruction of forests, extinction of species, depletion of protective ozone layer, use of fossil fuels, leading to increased high level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Economic growth but unfortunately, the economic growth has not been that that encompassing. So we are saying Kenya is growing at a rate of 6%. The economy is growing at a rate of 6%, and people are saying, you know, we don't have jobs. Our businesses are not doing well. Where is this economic growth? And this is pushing human demands on the ecosystem beyond its regenerative capacity and pushing many people to extreme poverty. Worst of all, the roots of these causes and problems have worrying footprints of business interests, which are misaligned to the common societal interests. I hope every one of you, or I would recommend that you take a look at this paper written in 1968 by Gavin Harden on the tragedy of the commons. And it is about the grazing ground and guys in a grazing ground, and everybody wants to make sure they have as many cows to make maximum utility of the grazing grounds. You can have a look at that and you'll get to understand the problem, how this problem has been escalating. And so what is the remedy? Is there any hope for us? So the scope of this problem actually is tremendously complex and requires deep conviction and innovative thinking. It is time when the shareholder becomes not the only stakeholder of the farm, but is part of the stakeholders, so that the farm just does not just work for the stakeholder. For we have seen the danger of that when we have got only one principal focus of profits. And so welcome to the world of sustainable finance, where the gloom can be turned into hope. Problems can be turned into opportunities and dreams into realities. We have to make investors, prospective investors, scholars, researchers appreciate that business interests do not have to suppress common interests in the guise of market capitalism. There is opportunity for business to be forces of peace and of good, to be eradicators of poverty and trustees of the ecosystem. So this one, we call it, is in the studies of ECG, and that is sustainable development and finance and responsible investing. We call it innovating and investing for common good. That is, you do well by doing good. So you are earning your profits, but your profits, you're not just the profits. Whatever you are doing is a good to the common society. So we pay careful attention to the environment, to the social governance, and in our investment. So we invest and we encourage investors when we are dealing with sustainable finance to invest in enterprises whose business models have potential to bring affordable, life-changing products and services to low-income consumers. So sustainable finance ought to be invested in projects, products, services that can be successfully deployed to create profound social impact, as well as produce positive financial returns to the investors. Now, unfortunately, when we talk about the environment, sustainability, social impact, and governance, these three do not move in the same direction. So it becomes a tricky affair. They don't always align. For example, how do you convince the government or an investor not to mine coal, what we call dirty coal, due to the negative impact of the climate? Yet, this is the one this is one of the most attractive businesses. Luckily, there is ample support for development financiers, for example, the European Green Deal Investment Plan. And we have, as sustainable finance experts, to look for ways to create more to bring more investors into the arena. We also have to be involved, lobby government for tax incentives for those who are doing well and doing good, and disincentives for those who are doing well at the cost of our environment, of our society, and also of our governance. We have to encourage activist investors to advocate accountability from corporations. And also, we have to be drivers and generators of innovation for business that are related to these three areas and directed to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So that business does not have to be a zero-sum competition, okay? But it has to be replaced with cooperative rules where there is a win-win outcome for humanity and the environment. So that is what I think we need to focus on. And I believe this 2 or 3 hours that this team will be discussing, we will try to look into ways that we can do things differently to make a change. Thank you so much. And I want to take this opportunity to invite my CEO and our VC, who is Professor Isaiah Wakidiki, to give some opening remarks and to welcome the team. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you so much indeed, Dean. It's quite exciting to be among this distinguished assembly this morning. Indeed, for me, it's my first academic engagement, I would say so, since I joined the university 4 months ago. And I'm very excited to do what I have done for the last 3 decades, and I've done it with a lot of passion. So by seeing this great assembly, it's a great testimony that our university is alive and well. You see, before this morning, I was a little bit concerned, CEO of a 21st century university, because the issue has been teaching. And I ask myself what distinguishes us from a primary school or secondary school. And what we are doing this morning is one of those issues that sets us aside, apart from just a high school or a junior college. We are participating in what I would call a global community of knowledge creators. What we are doing this morning, it has not only a national significance, but a global significance. And the issue of sustainable development, Agenda 63, these are global agendas and the global stage. And I'm very excited to see that my academics, our students, are really at the center of things. We are not just spectators, but we are part of the global community that is creating knowledge, especially in this domain of sustainable finance and associated areas. Our head of department, Christine, has really elaborated on the issue of sustainability around finance issues, and that is very good. One thing I want to underscore is what the Dean has just said, the issue of let us get involved. We cannot afford to be bystanders on these global discussions, but we must get involved, and we are not there to be invited. We are here on equal footing, like any other creator of knowledge globally. And so I want to say that thank you so much. The way to go in this future, we are talking of climate change, whether it's issues governance, geopolitics, the issue of sustainability will be key, starting with our own institution, KCA University. We are putting sustainability at the center of our strategic goals, our strategic planning, and very pleasing to note that we are in tandem with what is being addressed worldwide. So in brief, thank you so much indeed to all of you who are participating in today's event. And thank you so much to the organizers of this event. I have had a very fruitful discussion with Dr. Isola, and we have agreed that going forward, we should encourage our other faculties, schools and colleges to emulate what you are doing today. Is don't underrate the impact that it will have in our society, locally and abroad. With this, I wish you all the best in today's deliberations, and I look forward to reading the proceedings of today's event. I hope you are recording, and there will be at least some kind of summaries that we can read, even circulate to those who are absent. I want to indulge you by seeking your permission to drop out of the discussion midway. I may not have the luxury, although I wanted, to sit throughout the 2 or so hours, but in the event that I'm caught up in between, kindly allow me to attend to some other issues as the discussions continue. Nonetheless, I will be a silent listener. What I might do is to mute my video and continue to participate in the background, if you don't mind. Thank you so much indeed. Have one of the best discussions this year in terms of the role of sustainable finance in achieving sustainable development goals and Agenda 2063. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you, VC. We appreciate your presence. We thank you for the encouragement. Then I want to turn it over to Dr. Fatoki to take over from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean. Thank you so much, the Vice Chancellor and the Head of Department. I may not really be saying I may not really be saying much because a lot have been said concerning this sustainable financing. It's going to be like I'm repeating myself. But nevertheless, I want to bring it to your notice that in 2015, Kenya joined the Sustainable Banking and Finance Network. And in 2019, there was the first issuance of green finance, green bond at the NSC. This all other things, we realize that Kenya is ready to go sustainable at the end of the day to be able to maintain the economy in a sustainable way too. So that is what informed what we are doing. That's the objective of what we are doing. Not so many people know about sustainability. Not so many people know that there is even something they call sustainable financing. Not so many people know the principles that are associated with sustainable financing, which has been already been stressed by the dean. We'll be talking about environment, social, and governance. How can we annex this opportunity to make our society better? That is the major thing we are here to hear from our powerful team, the discussants. We were able to get these discussants all over the world, not only Kenya. So we got the best for our audience. And my hope is that at the end of the day, we should be able to know what sustainable finance is, the rules and regulations, and what are the risk mitigation opportunities that are going to come up there. So the choice of the discussant that we have, cut across the two variations of financial system. We have the conventional financial system and we have the Islamic financial system. All of them are represented here, and other financial institutions. So with this, I can rest my case, and as we enjoy the remaining part of this, we will be able to get precisely what I was trying to pass across to you so that we can have the African we want. Thank you so much for listening to me. And with this, I want to invite Dr. Abraham Rotich to welcome the discussants so that we can start on time. Time is not on our side any longer. Thank you, Dr. Rotich. Please welcome.
Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Abraham Rotich. I'm the coordinator of postgraduate studies at the School of Business, the College of Business at KCA University. I'm delighted to be here with you, and my role is to introduce all the discussants for today, invite them one by one to talk briefly about themselves, introduce themselves, so that the audience can know who is in the room. I'll start by inviting Sandy Okot, who is the Regional Sustainable Finance.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rotich, and thank you everyone for joining the session today. My name is Sandy Okot. I work for WWF as a regional sustainable finance expert. I support Kenya, Tanzania, Madagascar, and China in terms of implementation of sustainable finance work across the finance sector and across the infrastructure investment front. I'm happy to be here today and looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite next Judith C.D. Odiambo, who is the group head of corporate and regulatory affairs at the KCB group in Nairobi. Judy.
Good morning, everyone. Of course, my name is Judy, and I'm in charge of the corporate affairs docket at KCB Group. and I'm happy to be here this morning to further the discussion on sustainable finance. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Khalid Mohammed Aman, is a partner in Islamic finance at the Akbar Consult. Thank you, Dr. Khalid.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Khalid Aman. I'm a partner at Abrar Consult, a consulting firm in Kenya, Uganda, and Dar es Salaam. We basically are involved in Islamic finance training, awareness, and also developing Islamic finance product. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to actually thank Dr. Aman for being here today. This is the second time he's appearing in our discussion series. He was here last in 2019. So karibu sana, Dr. Khalid. Finally, we want to invite, no, so not finally. Next, I want to invite Nuru Mukambi. Nuru Mukambi is the Public Affairs Director and Sustainable Finance Lead at KBA.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope you can hear me. Really just congratulations to KCA University. Just listening to the comments about how the university has been a trailblazer in introducing development finance and a master's level degree on that. I've just looked at your website to learn more on that, and really just to congratulate that. I think it's important that we build our institutions and our local capacity. The space of development finance and impact finance is certainly not new, but certainly in terms of building local content, it's a new area. So I'm very happy to be here, happy to support, happy to see old friends, Dr. Maeshi and all. So thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Nuru Mukambi. Now, when we say KCA is a global university, so our next panelist is coming all the way from the UK, and this is Professor Kenneth Amasi. He's a professor of sustainable development, sustainable finance at the University of Edinburgh in the UK. Professor Kenneth Amasi, welcome and introduce yourself to the panelists, to the members here.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. My name is Kenneth Amasi. I'm based at the University of Edinburgh. I'm African, I'm a Nigerian, so I'm very much happy to contribute to what is happening on the continent. And I'm very pleased to see what your school is doing or the university. And I look forward to having an exciting conversation with yourselves today. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Professor. I want to invite Waidera Mwai Ireri. Waidera is Senior Manager of Corporate Affairs and Sustainability at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Welcome, Madam Waidera Mwai.
Thank you, Rotich, and good morning, everybody. Happy to be here, happy to join this esteemed team of professionals and the university. Very happy to see you putting together such a nice forum and looking forward to the discussions and the learnings that will come from this. Thank you.
All right. Finally, I want to introduce our moderator for the day. Our moderator today is coming from Jawera. Yes, at the Kiani Energy Private Limited in Zimbabwe. And
thank you very, very much. And it's a pleasure to be here moderating this session today. All protocols observed. Very much looking forward to the discussion today and to learn a lot and to participate in this information sharing and information creation session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So members are our panel. As you can see, they're coming all the way from very powerful organizations, both locally and globally. So at this point, I want to hand back the program to Dr. Fatuki so that the discussion can begin. Dr. Fatuki.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rotich. We appreciate your effort at introducing our very powerful discussants. Now I want to hand over back this section to Tonderia, who is the moderator for this session. Please, Tonderia, you are on.
Thank you very much, Doc. We will get straight into the discussion. Thank you. So our first question. In fact, we are going to have basically two question sessions where we will ask each participant a question going around, and then we will then get into the second set of questions, and then we will get into the question and answer segment from the general participants. So the first question that we have is going to Mr. Sandy Okoth. Sandy, may you tell us what it is that we call sustainable development, and basically what the role sustainable finance plays in achieving sustainable development, and of course leaning towards Agenda 2063.
Thank you very much, Tendorai. The idea of sustainable development basically looks at, achieving human development goals whilst being in tune with the natural economic and the natural environmental systems. Sustainable development, if you look at that idea, is when human development is in tune with the natural resource consumption activities. So in terms of how sustainable financing can help to achieve sustainable development, this is all centered around the global goals, which were unanimously adopted through the UN in 2015. The goals ideally were calling us to act in terms of being more creative, in terms of imparting knowledge and generating knowledge, in terms of tapping into tech, and in terms of tapping into finance, so as to tackle some of the environmental, social, and governance issues at the time. If you look at achievement of sustainable development through finance, there's around a $3 trillion gap in terms of SDG financing. And this gap is centered around issues of water, education, electrification, sanitation, very basic but very fundamental issues. So sustainable finance comes in as it centers around the ESG factors, environmental, social, and governance. And, it tries to tackle some of these issues, and it tries to catalyze, achievement of the SDGs. If you look at, the ESG data and how it plays in with sustainable finance, the ESG data critically defines, the demand and the supply side of sustainable finance towards achieving sustainable development. We are using ESG data in terms of looking at, the demand side, and this looks at the whole idea of how capital is being allocated, and this looks at the whole idea of how strategies are being developed to tackle some of the challenges. And if you look at also the supply side, we are looking at investors who are coming into market and by way of issuing, sustainable finance instruments to tackle some of those challenges. An example is the green bond that was issued by ACON. It was a green bond to tackle and to develop climate resilient student accommodation. So just to finish, sustainable finance is actually very critical in terms of how we amplify the market and how we amplify, the financial system to achieve sustainable development. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much for the succinct response, Sandy. Now we will move to Professor Amasi to discuss a bit of the African financial system and how it has developed, or at least how it has been participating towards sustainable finance. Professor Amasi, looking at the failure of the financial system to achieving sustainable development, does it then justify the need for sustainable finance? I mean, giving a background of what Sandy is talking about in terms of knowledge, in terms of the market amplifications and all of that. May you give your thoughts there, Professor?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sustainable finance in Africa, I would say it's a growing area. But like many other things, it is still driven by outside interests. Because yes, we like to follow the West, even if you look at our politics, our capitalism, and so on and so forth. So sustainable finance, to a large extent, is still driven by the global North. And if you look at the framing of it, it tends to very much focus on environmental issues. This whole talk about ESG, environment, social, and governance risk. But if you look at it literally, it's very much centered around the those risks that the global North will value. So climate change, climate finance has become very central. And our colleague from WWF might attest to this. But I like your focus on development finance, because I think that's what Africa needs. We have to develop in ways that are sustainable. And if you put it in that context, then I am inclined to think that sustainable finance would mean a lot for Africa and holds a lot of potential, but we need to domesticate it. Otherwise, we might end up following an agenda set by other people. At Glasgow, we'll be holding the COP26 this year. And there also the conversation again will be very much around climate issues. But beyond climate, I'm not by any way underemphasizing the relevance of climate issues. But within Africa, we know that we have other pressing issues. And these pressing issues, people can argue that, oh, they are linked to climate issues and environmental challenges. That's fine. I know that SDGs are interconnected. So there's no problem with that. But what we put at the center, in this case, matters for us. So whether it is health or education or poverty or infrastructure, they will eventually touch on the environment. But we need to prioritize our sustainable development goals. And that's where Agenda 2063 becomes very important. So my question then will be, to what extent is development finance in Africa guided and shaped by 2063 agenda, as opposed to trying to be like the West or the global North? So that for me will be a fundamental question. And I've been doing a piece of study at the moment, looking at the instruments, the tools and the techniques used by financial institutions in Africa, both indigenous firms and those coming from outside, to see to what extent these tools and techniques reflect the interests of Africa. Because at the end of the day, I mean, ideas are ideas. Sustainable finance is an idea, but how the ideas are translated into practice matters a lot. And in this case, there is a place for metrics, for tools and techniques. And if we don't pay attention to those, we may end up, again, pursuing practices that may not necessarily address our needs as much as we wish, or practices that are disconnected from our worldviews. So in this case, I'm looking for a blend, a hybrid, whereby we bring in our own situational challenges to a global practice in order to derive more benefit from it.
Very, very detailed, Prof. Thank you very much. I will just add another question there, where we are talking about the practicality and the blending of sustainable finance into our African systems. What impact would it then make as an area of specialization in academia, and where do you think our universities and our colleges can blend in the aspects of sustainable finance? I mean, we can look at the whole wide array that is served by development finance, by sustainable finance. It may not only be something that focuses on students that have already focused on finance. what would be the impact and how would we spread the wings there?
And that's a very good question. And as already been mentioned, sustainability is broad in itself, and sustainable development can cut across different disciplines. So in management education, for example, the question might be, okay, what does it mean for somebody in marketing? What does it mean for somebody in HRM? What does it mean for accounting or economics? And in this case, finance. So I suspect every discipline would need to connect with it in ways that would make sense to them. So that way we can think of how sustainability or the sustainable development agenda can inform and shape our curricula. In terms of finance, and particularly in economics, I think the challenge here is to find the kind of theorization that allows sustainable finance to speak to what we know. Otherwise, it becomes a challenge. And I suspect you may have colleagues who continue to push back and say, you know, what is this sustainable finance? What is new about it? And the language matters in this case. So if it's driven by, say, investors or NGOs and so on and so forth, they will come with different frames and framing of the issue. And one of the things I'm grappling with at the moment is also how do we frame sustainable finance in such a way that it fits into mainstream thinking? And one of the ways I'm looking at it is through the notion of externalities. Some people have also advanced or advocated for what they call the market failure approach. So if you bring it back into that context, which again might draw from the principles of welfare economics, whereby the notion of the market is to cause no harm. So market in itself, or as a capitalist agenda, is not meant to create problems for us. Markets are there to solve our problems. Markets are there to provide innovation. Markets are there to provide us affordable and quality products and services. If markets are unable to do that, then we'll be thinking about market failure, and then there will be role for regulation and other means of governing the market to deliver. So I think the sustainable finance question needs to come back to the original understanding of markets. And if you position it that way, then it's nothing extra. So we are not asking companies to do anything extra. All we are asking companies to do, in a sense, is on one hand, to internalize the externalities, to reduce their negative impact, whether it's on the environment or on people or other things, right? So there is that notion of externality internalization. Then on the other hand, we are thinking of how finance can support the production of the things we want to see in society. So there are two things there. You reduce the negative impact, you know, we need to be aware of the negative impact of finance. On the other hand, we're also thinking about how finance can support the kind of society we want. So in that case, I see two things. So when people talk about sustainable finance, it can mean different things, but you can also think about financing sustainability. So in that case, how do you unleash the power embedded or the resources of finance to meet the sustainable development goals, which in themselves are progressive in nature? So, but we need to frame these conversations in ways that would meet our colleagues where they are. Otherwise, it becomes far-fetched. It becomes something more like the agenda of the political left. And economics and finance will struggle with that way of framing. But if you bring it back into the conversation, and it's about competition, it's about externalities, managing externalities, it's about inflation and unemployment, and it's all about market failure and how to address market failure. I suspect it would grab the attention of both our colleagues in economics and mainstream finance.
Very well put, Prof. Thank you very much. Nuru, I am coming to you on a related matter that speaks to how best Africa would be ready to internalize the externalities, like Prof is saying, issues around having the African agenda fitting in terms of sustainable finance. And currently, we realize that very few African countries are now members of the Sustainable Banking Network, of which it's very, very good that Kenya has joined that. And looking at this, can we say Africa is ready for the shift to embrace sustainable finance policies in its financing models. Nuru, you may come in.
Thanks so much, Tonderai, for the question. Maybe if I can just build on what Prof. Amasi is talking about in terms of the African context in this whole conversation around sustainability and how we respond to issues management. When Kenya Bankers Association embarked on the Sustainable Finance Initiative in 2012, at that time, I remember very few banks were really engaging on this conversation. In fact, I think the banks that were really engaging were those that were part of the Equator Principles. And when we had our first session with the CEOs, I remember several bank CEOs told me, Nuru, we are not interested in a cookie cutter approach in terms of just replicating. In terms of what's going on in the West. I don't know, can you hear me? It says that I'm muted. Can you hear me? It says host is muting me. Okay, great. So in terms of what's going on in the West, the local bank CEOs were very particular that we need to be responsive to our context. And I think it's very important. And we embarked on a one-year review. I actually spent 1 year really looking at all the sustainability-related principles issued by the UN, UNEP, IFC, Equator Principles. And at that time in 2012, what I noticed is that all the principles and frameworks that existed at the time were very much geared to the institutional mandate. So IFC's principles and standards were geared to IFC's mandate. UNEP's principles and standards were geared to the UN environment, so very heavy on environment. UN Global Compact was geared to governance. ILO was geared to labor-related issues. So then you realize that if we are really to engage on this issue of sustainable finance at the industry level, you have to borrow from best practice, but at the same time speak to the local context. So the principles that Kenya Bankers Association introduced for the banking industry were a collection of principles, and then we introduced two principles actually that were not present in all the other principles. And the two principles we spoke to were our first principle around really looking at economic impact versus financial returns. And this was a principle that really spoke to the fact that the financial sector, particularly banks, based on our intermediary role, had a responsibility to ensure that they're not only creating financial value for their shareholders and the firm, but are creating sustainable impact, which is not always the case just because you're operating a bank. The second principle that we introduced that was not existing at the time was the principle about inclusion and innovation through really looking at the SME sector, PWDs and women. At that time, like I mentioned before, a lot of the sustainability principles out there were talking about the big deals, the wind farms, when you think about Turkana wind farm, and they're talking about big deals and the environmental issues. But when you talk about sustainability from an African context, you cannot escape the social aspect. And I think we're all learning now because of COVID, the role of the social impact in terms of ensuring economic sustainability. So I think what Professor is really speaking to is the experience that we had in terms of ensuring that as much as we're charting a way forward aligned to global best practice, it's important to have that local context. You spoke about the Sustainable Banking Network. Kenya Bankers Association is a member of the network. KB has been a member of the network for several years. Sorry, I keep getting muted. It's a very good network that creates a space for regulators and industry associations to learn from each other and also to benchmark. So KB has been part of the benchmarking exercise, I think 3 iterations of the benchmarking exercise, and you can see how Kenya, in those reports, you can see how Kenya has advanced in terms of being a country that's in the beginning stages of adopting sustainable finance towards what they call, achieving and really trying to underpin some of the principles and policies that are there. And of course that how we've been able to advance as a country include developments like what KCA is doing in terms of building local capacity, having transactions. Sandy talked about the Acorn Green Bond, having Daktari at the beginning of the session talked about the need for incentives. Kenya was the first country in East and Central Africa to introduce tax incentive on green bonds. So all these indicators and activities that we have going on in the country have enabled Kenya to really accelerate in its path. Are we where we want to be? No. we do have several challenges around the enabling environment, policy environment, of course, COVID, that we're trying to navigate. But I think ultimately, Tundurai, I think we are on the right path. Thanks.
Indeed, it's a journey, Nuru, and we take steps with every player coming in to play their part, right, as you're saying. And again, congratulations on being part of the Sustainable Banking Network. I would love to take it over to Judith and build upon the discussion that we have started. And Judith, from what Nuru is saying, and aside from central governments, how effective do you think is the banking sector and players like KCB as a key player and stakeholder in implementing sustainable finance in Kenya, particularly in relationship with the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063? I mean, we can go on and talk about the pace that we have already started setting. Take it over, Judith.
Thank you, Daktari. So from KCB, thank you, Nuru, also for having given that input. So of course, from banking, or what I would say is that, yes, of course, it was not easy, but I think one of the things that we have done as an industry is to ensure that we have aligned the terminologies of sustainability to be reflected also on how we do our day-to-day business. And I think then that enables us now to be able to have better discussion on how sustainability then has impact, not just to our society, but also to the bigger economy. And of course, how best, again, do we make sure that even as we run our business, we run it from a profitable bit, but again, making sure that we take cognizance of all our stakeholders within that cycle. So everybody is included. We just don't focus on the shareholder alone, but also looking at all the other stakeholders within our cycle. So just from your question that you have asked on how then are we ensuring that sustainable development and the role of sustainable finance in achieving this. So basically, how do you look at sustainable development? We see it as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And the sustainable finance model also plays a key role in implementing SDGs and ensuring that social and environmental sustainability again is realized. So one of the things that we have done as an institution is to identify how are we going to run sustainability as an organization. And so we identified four parameters. And these are financial, economic. I don't know why there's an echo. Okay, and these are financial, economic, social, and environmental. And so from these four parameters, then it has enabled us to be able to focus and look at what are these items under these four parameters that we can be running with and ensuring that also we do progress reports on the same. So that then we can be able to track and see which areas are we lagging behind, which areas do we need to improve, which areas do we require much more input. We have also had to do a lot of capacity building for staff so that then they can also be capable of understanding what their role is in terms of supporting sustainable finance. And so this has enabled also to ensure that we're able to mainstream and integrate it, and at the same time also get buy-in from the business. Of course, we've also noted that there's also a strong link between sustainable finance model and of course social sustainability. looking at our SDG number 1, 3, 4, 5, 10, and 16. Looking at environmental sustainability, we see this in SDG number 11, 12, 13, and 15. And of course, economic sustainability on SDG 8, 9, and 17. So for KCB, what we did in 2017 was to ensure that we did a session with all our members of staff in the bank so that they could be able to identify which SDGs are relevant to the way we do our business. And we identified 9 that then we work with. We make sure that we monitor. This year, what we have done is automate the process so that the divisions that are supposed to support each line item of those SDGs then can be able to give us the updates in terms of progress on what is happening in their various line items. So that integration has also been a very good step forward for everybody to own it and to know what is their contribution towards sustainable development goals as a division. Again, just looking also at sustainable finance, we see sustainable finance again as supporting investments and also lending in low carbon and sustainable sectors. And we see the Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, who have estimated that around 2.4 trillion or roughly 2.5% of global GDP annually is required to invest in energy systems between 2016 and 2035. Again, a very big potential to limit our global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Of course, we know this is unlikely to be met at the present levels of investment. So again, a lot more needs to be done in that area. So that's what I would say is that sustainability, of course, one of the good things about sustainability is that it has helped us to understand better which are the areas that you can be able to pick out and run with as an institution in order to support the agenda. The Sustainable Development Goals also are also good because then they give us a breakdown on what you're able to do in each of those indicators. So again, it has enabled us now to give those breakdown of which are these parameters that you can be able to support and run with. And everybody then in the institution takes responsibility to make sure that then they support each line item that they're expected to do. So yes, a lot of it, as I said earlier, a lot of capacity building has been done in that space just to make sure that then everybody is brought on board and now business are able to appreciate the importance of running your business in a sustainable manner. So that's what I would be able to say, and over to you, Dr.
The strategy seems very, very clear there, and amazing work you're already doing towards that drive and to participate in the overall goal. We will take a bit of a swipe to analyze with Dr. Khalid Mohammed on how how Islamic financing has been appreciated on the continent and how it complements with sustainable finance. Maybe Doc, you may give a comment on how you have observed the uptake of Islamic finance and how it relates to sustainable finance.
Thank you. Basically, I will start by thanking the moderator and KCA in particular for having me here. Basically, Islamic finance is not something that you will say complements, if I may put it right, to sustainable finance. If you were to ask me, I would have actually labeled it as a sustainable finance as opposed to Islamic finance because of the inherent values it has or it contributes to sustainable finance. From the talk of Dr. Muchiri, if I'm not mistaken, when he mentioned to say that business should not surpass everything that we do. Basically, profit as well should not come first before everything else. In Islam, we do have a basic principle that says you minimize harm and you maximize on the benefit of the society. So basically, sustainable finance will maximize benefit to the society. Maybe to put it simply, to explain what Islamic finance is financial activities which are being done with the underlying principle of Islamic values. Now, having said that, you will find that we do have different or many principles that support Islamic finance, including prohibition of interest and social consideration. Maybe one will ask, how is it possible that you are doing business without charging interest? We've seen how interest has costed developing world in terms of loans which are being given by the developed world. Now, to take that out of the economy maybe will be a very big question to many, but it is doable, and it has proven that it is possible to do business without that. In Islamic finance, you either become a buyer, seller, lessee, lessor, or partners in doing business. But having said that, coming back to the question, maybe let me just go with the question that how is it complementing sustainable finance? Under the social consideration, Islamic finance prohibit dealing with particular industries such as tobacco, alcohol. Yes, it is profitable, but we all know how negative it has to our societies. And now, when you look at, for example, the UN SDG number 3, which says good health, it is obvious that being alcoholic or being involved in tobacco production really harm our health. So basically, it is inherent in Islamic finance that social or sustainable finance is part and parcel of Islamic finance. We've seen different instruments being issued there, which are basically products such as financial inclusion products and even green sukuk. Sukuk basically are equivalent to the bonds, whereby we have countries that have issued these basically to sustain the environment and social and governance aspect of finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. I'm going to come back to you again. And speaking of how exactly Islamic finance is contributing, can you describe 2 or 3 financial instruments that are contributing directly to the cause of sustainable finance?
For example, we do have commercial instruments and we also have social instruments. We do have endowment instruments that actually to promote financial inclusion, number one. Number two, you will find that Islamic finance promotes more on equity-based contract as opposed to debt-based contract. You have a contract like, let's say, musharaka and mudaraba. These are Arabic terms, but simply put, there are partnership contracts whereby both the lender and lendee are mutually benefiting or mutually share risk and profit at the same time, as opposed to having everything from the lender. And this is the point of departure mostly with conventional finance. Having that kind of an arrangement whereby you share risk. If I was to lend you 100, basically what I'm trying to say is that I'm not giving you 100 for you to return back 100 plus 13% interest rate, as in our case here in Kenya, which is the interest rate here. Basically is that we are going to share risk. I'll take that money, go do business, and in term or in case of any losses, we will have to equally share, unless it is caused by my negligence as an entrepreneur. Our previous speaker, Judith, will maybe have a clue of it because KCB has also embraced Islam. If I may just point out that we do have banks here in Kenya. We do have 3 fully fledged Islamic financial institutions. We also have windows, we have insurance, we have even circles. So it doesn't really mean that Islamic finance refutes time value of money. Someone can argue that way, but it basically promotes it with the underlying economic activity. If I do have much and I give it to you and you give me back plus interest, then basically richer will end up being richer, poor will end up being poor. Now, the Islamic finance also, maybe one will also argue, let me first try and clear the misconception that we do have out there. One may argue that it serves the same purpose. with conventional finance. Let's say I'm interested to have asset finance, a car or something. I can go to FTB or KCB or Barclays and so on and so forth and get that. Our principle as Islamic finance or the Islamic finance fraternity believes that we do not believe in a notion that ends justify needs. Most important is the process. How did you get that house? How did you get that car? In what process did you get that? Now, in conventional, you agree with me, I'll give you money, and at the end of the day, you will pay me. Whether you have done it or you diversify to a different business activity, that is none of my business. Now, the underpin principle here is that Islamic finance will promote sustainable finance in a way, in a sense that before I even, let's say I come to stock exchange, before I invest in any particular company, I will have to see, is it involved in activities that are not acceptable in Islam, or even is ESG principle, whereby you find a company may be contributing to their air pollution, or it is a danger to the ecosystem. Islamically, you are not supposed to invest in that. By that, I do mean that you're actually promoting sustainable finance. Coming to the contracts, like I've said, we do have more of equity-based contract as opposed to debt-based contract. I'm not saying that we do not subscribe to debt-based contract, we do, but it is advised to have a minimum of such contracts so that you can be able to share risk and profit. Thank you.
Very well put, Doc. Thank you very, very much. It's a succinct response. We'll come back with more questions in the next round. And now moving to Waitera, who are the key stakeholders in sustainable finance, particularly from the NSE, and how far have they contributed to the development and effectiveness of sustainable finance instruments? Right.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. I think building from what the other speakers have said, and I think more specifically to what Judy was saying about how sustainability is an all-encompassing field. So for us at the NSE, we feel that the broader capital markets ecosystem all have to have a role to play in promoting sustainability. If I can start with the NSE specifically, I mean, we are the interface with nearly all capital market actors. We are uniquely positioned to promote best practice sharing and collaboration, which really creates the long-term value for issuers and investors. As I speak now, we have put together an ESG disclosure guidance manual for application by listed companies, and in fact, even non-listed entities can use the manual, and we're looking at integrating ESG into the strategies of our listed companies. So it's really a how-to manual, and it identifies material ESG topics, how to measure materiality of ESG topics, how to integrate ESG into strategy, and how to report on ESG performance using an approach that meets the international standards on sustainability reporting. Another very important and fundamental player is the government and the regulator in our jurisdiction. It's the Capital Markets Authority, who really set the standards and the guidelines and promote investor protection, especially around the space of sustainability. When you look at issues to do with greenwashing, they have a really big mandate in that space. Development finance institutions are also very key players in this. They provide funding and they support economic growth of the sustainability space. Market intermediaries, the NSE does not, we are not the front facing with investors. So we have market intermediaries who advise issuers. They advise investors on sustainable projects to invest in. They advise issuers how to put together these sustainable instruments. Issuers themselves have a big role to play, looking at a bank like KCB and all the other players in the market. They are the ones who have to list and issue these green instruments. ACON listed a green bond, as earlier mentioned. And there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity for issuers in our market to put out green instruments. looking at the investors, now investors are really keen and they're pushing for more green products. They're pushing for transparency in reporting. They are pushing and demanding for disclosure of non-financial information, which is why issues around the ESG disclosures is going to be very key and important for our listed companies as a how-to guide to reporting. Media is also very important in this space because information again has come out as very wanting in terms of what the public knows, what is available to the public. So the media can play a very fundamental role in putting out information out there, telling the stories, telling the public what issues are available. They also come and put some of our issuers to task and the listed companies and they put them in the limelight when they don't adhere to the set guidelines and policies. So it's really a very vast ecosystem that needs to work collaboratively to ensure that we meet our sustainable development goals and that we work hand in hand to come up with the policies, the guidelines, come up with the instruments, and at the end of the day, inform the relevant key stakeholders that the market is indeed ready and we can go ahead and put these instruments out for the investors to invest in. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. That's packed and quite informative. Thank you very much. We are going to come back to you on various risks that are associated with greenwashing, as you are talking about, and even having it as a multifaceted, or at least as a multi-stakeholder space that needs quite some regulation as the representative of our regulators. Thank you very much, Waitera. I am going back to Sandy. We started discussing around ESG data a few moments back, and Sandy, may you give an insight to any sustainable finance instruments you may have used or come across, and in those instruments and in interacting within the broad space of sustainability, what role do you think ESG data plays in the innovations of sustainable finance practices?
Thank you very much for that question. In terms of sustainable finance instruments, at WWF, we have been very focal at supporting the Green Bonds Program Kenya, which was convened by KBA, Nuru and her colleagues. And our support was centered around creating an enabling environment, to spur the market towards issuance of, the green finance facilities and instruments. So the one that we've really interacted with was the green bond, and how we did our support was through several things. And one of them was, we commissioned a study to look at the sectors with the highest potential for green financing. And at the time, we identified agriculture, transport, and manufacturing as very critical sectors in Kenya, given, the government agenda at the time, given the footprint and given the opportunities for investors. So, we took it upon ourselves to support the program, and we've supported them, through studies like that. We've also been part of capacity building, especially for our local parliamentarians through the Finance and Planning Committee for Parliament. So that is the kind of work that at WWF, we've been supporting. And when we go back to the ESG and the ESG data, we look at Africa, and Kenya is part of Africa. We still suffer from a lot of ESG issues. There's climate change, there's environmental degradation, there's protected areas, there's unsustainable production and consumption, there's weapons, there's bribery, there's corruption, there's human rights, there's inclusion. There are so many issues that, we need to be really focusing on in terms of trying to amplify sustainable finance. And if we integrate this into, tangible data, then this is going to be very critical in informing the types of sustainable finance innovations and sustainable finance practices that are going to come up. If you look at some of those issues, for example, as I'd mentioned before, On the supply side, data around some of these ESG issues, will be very critical in terms of how investors are allocating capital and how investors are coming up with their strategies of how to, deploy their capital as well. So, this data is very, very critical. And then as well, the data also determines some of, the market-driven solutions. Like, for example, the subscription of the Acon bond was at around 85%. And that shows that, the market is actually really warming up to the idea that, we can actually use some of the green financial products to tackle some of the ESG issues. And all this is data driven. There's a huge potential, for example, in Kenya around green energy and green infrastructure. And we are seeing a lot of money being invested here because, the data is available and everyone is tapping into the data to make some of the investment and some of the finance decisions. So just to wind up, I think ESG data going forward is going to play a very critical role. And as Waidera and maybe Judy alluded, some of the banking sector and the finance sector players, it's still at very voluntary stage, but the data is actually coming out. And the environment has actually been created by some of the regulators and some of the industry players for other investors and others to follow suit. So this data is becoming more and more critical, and institutions like KCA can tap into this by being and convening a data-driven department where you focus on issues like ESG, and I'm sure you'll get market for that. So the data is becoming very critical and will ideally really shape how sustainable finance practices in Africa and in Kenya in general, move forward. Over. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Sandy. We'll come back to you with another question. And now we want to move on to Professor Maeshi. Professor Sandy has introduced the issue around analysis of ESG data and other streams that really need consideration of sustainable finance skills. And where does Africa stand regarding these sustainable finance skills towards Agenda 2063, the SDGs, and even taking a leaf from COVID-19?
Tonderia, the professor is having a technical issue. He just got in touch with me. So
no,
yes, sir.
No, that's all right. Thank you very, very much. So at this point, I am coming to Nuru. We want to continue the conversation on ESG data, and from your observations, Nuru, has ESG data been well utilized in order to manage? In fact, what are some risks that you feel need to be mitigated as seen from collection of ESG data, and how have we managed to utilize ESG data to manage some of the risks that we have seen happening in the use of sustainable finance? Over to you, Nuru. Or let me take it back to Sandy. Sandy, in terms of risk management and mitigation, what are some of the risks that you think need to be mitigated when we are considering the use of ESG data? And how do you feel ESG data has been utilized in order to manage some of these risks?
Leave. Ay, nikilive alafu acha tu nisilive.
Thank you for that question. Waidera alluded earlier that that the NSE is actually at the front in terms of providing some of the ESG integration tools for the players within the NSE. And in terms of the risks, we are looking at several things here. When we're integrating ESG ideally into investments and into finance, we have to be very clear on several things. In terms of risk, there's a lot of risk around the ESG. There is risks such as pricing of the sustainable finance products. Are we pricing them correctly? Are we looking at the short-term economic value, or are we pegging it on the long-term view where we want to integrate environmental, social, and governance issues? We have macroeconomic risks as well. And this is all around, availability and affordability of some of the sustainable finance instruments and that kind of thing. And then we also have, the risks within the capital and the financial markets. The risk of pricing, the risk of capital allocation. Do we have biases towards, certain aspects, certain sectors which are not, pro ESG integration, for example. And then, we also have risks around leverage. All these things require a lot of, capital to be deployed. They require a lot of capital to be available. They require a lot of capital to be leveraged. So here, the capital custodianship risk, are we saying that if we have capital that is available, is this capital, one, repairable to the investors, and two, is where we are deploying capital, are we going to generate enough cash flows to pay back? So we have to look at, the whole spectrum in terms of the risks. And I think that the quickest and the easiest way to look at it is to, adopt some of the tools and some of the principles and some of the policies centered around integration of ESG. Looking at your purpose, do you have concrete sustainability strategies within your business? Do you have policies that support, integration of ESG within your business? Your processes, are you assessing your ESG risks in an adequate manner? And I'd like to point out at WWF, we actually worked with the Credit Information Sharing of Kenya Association, and we came up with a tool that looked at different ESG risks and how you can integrate those into the lending that is currently ongoing. Kenya is awash with lending opportunities, and I've seen some questions popping up on the chat box around Fuliza and all those online lending platforms. Are we looking at ESG integration into how we are lending? And then also looking at your people and your products. Are we training our people on ESG and the related risks? Are we coming up with the right products on ESG? And also, do we maintain portfolios which are heavy on ESG? So there are several aspects that we can speak to here, but I think those are the few that I can mention at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Sandy. I am going to Judith, and looking again at our instruments. We hear talk around green bonds. And Judith, aside from green bonds, what are some of the instruments that we have seen within the market? And do you think the financial sector is doing enough when it comes to the issuance of these instruments? And what do you feel are some of the bottlenecks that need to be worked on?
Thank you for that. So yes, we do have, of course, other options. Yes, we do have green bonds. But of course, one of the things to appreciate is that the market also needs to be educated on that front. And to even for the financial sector also to understand the benefits of it, so that then they can be able to take a step and participate in that. So I think the understanding of it in the market, and then to see the value, and then how then do you participate in it, so that then you can be able to get your return on investment. I think much more education is required for the financial sector, so that we can have more people seeing a potential in it, and of course participating. Then of course the other we have the the Green Climate Fund. So the Green Climate Fund also is giving out facilities through, of course, our national our NDA. So basically through the Green Climate Fund, then you get accredited so that you can be able to access funds that can be able to support climate mitigation and adaptation. That is also another avenue that financial sectors can really take advantage of to be able to support some of our big customers who really want to invest and participate in the climate change and the climate adaptation area. So Green Climate Fund is also available. Most banks also you'll find are working with DFIs, and of course through working with DFIs, then of course they're able to get some of the facilities which can support them in terms of growing their green lending book and also growing their climate finance book. So that is also another area that also we can also be able to tap into because those are already there, and it's just a matter of engaging the relevant DFI so that then you can be able to benefit from that. Of course, there are requirements that need to be done. Your environmental and social governance practices need to be in place. And of course, the monitoring of it, making sure that they can look at your book to see what is your potential of those areas, and then of course then giving you an approval for you then to be able to access that funding. So there are also other avenues, especially for financial institutions, maybe before you go big bang, is to look at the DFI so that through the small funding, then you take the opportunity to learn a process, to understand what is required, and then it gives you then the motivation now to be able even to go for the bigger deals. But yes, the green bonds are a good potential, but I think because of the market trends so far, most people have really not been convinced to tap into it. So I think much more education on it and potential on it, then I think we'll be able to see more institutions in the financial sector participating in that. But there are also other options, which I have mentioned earlier, where financial institutions can use that platform now to learn and to be able then to progress in that space and get much more confidence now to do the bigger deals. Thank you, and over to you.
Thanks very much. I think you've answered again the question around the participation of retail investors and what the future holds for SMEs in Kenya. But maybe you may just want to extend a comment on retail investors and small to medium enterprises. How do you feel these organizations, the ones that you mentioned, development finance institutions, the Green Climate Fund and other donors, for example, looking at everything, then how are retail investors and SMEs catered for there? Just an extended comment.
Okay, so of course, if you work with DFIs, most of them are very much focused on SMEs and micro SMEs. So working with DFIs, it gives you the potential then to work with the lower segment of the economy. Of course, the Green Climate Fund means then you'll work a lot more with your corporate and your mid-sized corporates, because of the nature of the projects that of course are working. But even these big projects also, they tend to have a value chain towards SMEs and also the micro SMEs. So the potential is there. It's to make sure then is to look at then now how is your lending book, looking at your lending book and then saying which portions do you want to grow. And then once you agree with them, then now you can be able now to see how much facility do you require so that you can be able to grow that area and still manage your risks and also get your return on investments.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much once again, Judith. We'll come back with a few more questions. Okay. Moving over to Dr. Khaled Mohammed. Doc, may you speak to us on some of the most common strategies or pathways that have been seen on the continent to move the sustainable finance vision, particularly through Islamic financing models?
Thank you again. Basically, like I said initially, that Islamic finance has an inherent values when it comes to sustainable financing. So there's no much issues when having such a discussion, because if it is inherent in it, basically whatever activities it will be financing will basically be sustainable to sustainable development. Maybe I need to point out what maybe my other colleague was trying to discuss. I think it is Sandy, in regards to profit versus ESGs policies. Do we have policies that will actually drive our financial institution to finance more on sustainable development? On Islamic finance, basically, it will be basically between discussion around profit versus our values. Which one comes first here? Is it our value or is it our profit? Now, if I was to go back to your question, the strategies that basically are put in order or in our products in regards to sustainable development will be basically embracing of fintech. And this is basically has been seen mostly in Southeast Asia. You will agree with me that the growth of this industry from London to Hong Kong, Luxembourg to Johannesburg, it shows an appetite, paradigm shift, whereby you'll see people are looking for alternative financing, which has inherent values when it comes to ESG. Now, embracing of fintech per se will not actually solve our problems here. Maybe from what I've seen in the network of sustainable banking network, I haven't seen much of countries that actually has this particular kind of alternative financing joining the club. I've seen some which has a predominant number of Muslims. Islamic finance is not specific for Muslims. We all know that all other faiths do embrace the notion of prohibition of interest, among others. So basically, if they were to join, it will basically enhance, it will actually create more awareness of what people are doing in Islamic finance. Secondly, maybe, or number three, I will say that having the green bond that people have been talking about, and we have seen this in the continent. I think this year, Sudan has issued a green bond, which is actually financing renewable energy. With this, we will know that the result will be more on sustainable development. The continent has actually embraced Islamic finance when it comes to Sukuk, the alternative of bond, from South Africa to Nigeria, where they had issued actually, this is the third time they are issuing. In 2017, they issued around, that was an internal borrowing. Islamic finance instrument was used. And even from the news I'm getting from Nigeria is that they're actually advocating for the fourth bond or for the fourth sukuk to be a green-based sukuk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. That's quite insightful and a lot to learn there. Those that are unmuted, may you please mute yourselves. May you mute your mics so that we don't have any interruptions going on. We are moving over to Waitera, and we may have a bit of a long conversation here, but allow us to do a bit of debunking into the various issues that affect, or at least that are exposed when it comes to financial regulation. And the first question, Waitera, is what risk mitigation instruments can be locally adopted to ensure sound risk management and protection of the private sector participation, but not only, of course, private sector participation, even public sector participation itself?
Thanks for that question. I think one of the biggest challenges that we are facing right now is that standardization of the reporting ESG, on the categorization of ESG instruments. So if it's a green bond or a green instrument, there are those issues around greenwashing that are slowly picking up pace, and more you get to hear about issuers and funds that are going into that they're getting into greenwashing. So I think from where we sit as policymakers, we are very keen to help direct funds to sustainable projects, and there are rigorous efforts to provide structure to the markets and provide green finance regulations, say where investment products are categorized as sustainable and non-sustainable. What you'll realize is globally there are so many standards that are there. So even as we were putting together our ESG disclosure guidelines, there are very many standards that have been advanced globally. So you're talking about the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, the TCFD. You have the Green Bond Framework. You have UN Principles for Responsible Banking. There's a Global Reporting Initiative Standards. There's a Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. So I think as an issuer, when you sit down and you commit to have a green instrument, you start to ask yourself, so where do I start? What guidelines am I going to use? What is accepted locally? And I think as regulators, that's why we are now saying we need to contextualize it to our local environment. So that's what we are doing at the NSC, and we are saying, yes, there are all these globally acceptable standards, and we are going to, for us, we hinged ours, or it was founded around the Global Reporting Initiative Standards. So that's what we founded it as, and we partnered with them to put out our localized ESG disclosures, because without the policies and the framework, it's very difficult for there to be a transparent and well-regulated market for sustainability. So I think that's one of the major challenges right now, because as more and more issuers are looking to put out green products, there needs to be some certain guidelines, because as an investor, how will I know to invest in one instrument vis-a-vis another? There needs to be some level of comparability that allows me to sorry, there's a bit of echo. That allows me to compare, one listed entity to the other. Sorry, can you hear me, Chandrai?
Yes, sure, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think that's what I can say in terms of the regulation and trying to standardize the market so that all issuers are treated equally, and there are standardized guidelines and policies that allow us to protect the investors.
Oh, thank you very, very much for that. And the second question that I have in this segment to you is comparing with the conventional bonds, what is the cost implication and other challenges of raising sustainable finance instruments in the market? I think we can then later on take the same question to Dr. Khaled, but what is the cost implication, and what are some of the other challenges of raising sustainable finance instruments on the market?
Okay, so I think in terms of issuing a green bond, I feel like there's a myth that issuing green instruments is expensive, and you need to have a lot of consultants on board, and once you label it green, you have to come and it has to be verified, and that perception has really hindered the growth of the segment. So I think based on our research and our analysis, there's really no major difference in putting out a green instrument in terms of financing. In fact, data has showed that it is issuing green bonds it can bring many benefits, including cheaper finance to the issuer. But it is also important that issuers do not only issue because they expect cheaper finance. The more and more we look towards, especially the EU, where they're coming out with a lot of green bonds, the rate of oversubscription is phenomenal, and that really has proven proven to be catapulting factor to more and more companies putting out green instruments out there. So that element of cheaper finance, I think it needs to be communicated more clearly and more understood to our local market, just so that they don't feel like it's such an onerous task and there are so many parties involved who need to come and then be, you know, to be paid to support the issuance of that green bond. In terms of, I think, maybe other challenges, there are a number of challenges in any growing market. And for us as the NSE, you know, we have a lot of other instruments that we put out there, and indeed we noticed that there are different elements just at the beginning of putting out a new product out there. So the volume of bankable projects and the robust project pipelines is a challenge. Maturity of bond markets in certain countries is quite a challenge. I don't know which speaker was mentioning about especially the growth of green bonds in Africa. It's very slow and protracted. I think currently it's only South Africa who have about 8 green bonds out, followed by Nigeria and Morocco with, I think, between 6 and 7, and then a few of us here with 1 or 2, and that's looking across the entire African continent. So it becomes quite challenging for the maturity of the bond market in certain countries. Preparedness for bond financing, just what we were talking about earlier in terms of identifying even the suitable projects that will be labeled green. Commonly acceptable green standards, that's a big issue that we've mentioned about standardization and where do you start and which standards do you use and what's acceptable to your market. I think it was Nuru who in her opening remarks was talking about how, you know, institutions customize them to their context. IFC they have their standards based on how IFC expects things to be. UN puts out standards based on how they want it to be. But then we are living in a circular economy. We're living in a global economy where even issuers in Kenya need to have these guidelines that will be then suitable for their local context. So that's a challenge. Risk-averse investors. Sorry?
No, go ahead. It's just an interruption. Anyone that is unmuted, please mute yourselves. Go ahead.
Okay, so risk-averse investors with limited capacity to analyze green instruments, that's also a challenge. We really need to build capacity, especially for the market intermediaries, because like I said earlier, they're the go-between, you know, the market and the investors and the issuers. So if we don't have a rich capacity of intermediaries who completely understand how the market works, who know the benefits, who understand the risks, and then communicate that to the issuers, there's a big gap, and that's something that we are also trying, you know, to work closely with the regulator and try to continuously build capacity. Even the DFIs are working very well with us and providing funding to see how we can upskill the market participants. Small investments that would not be attractive to large institutional investors, there needs to be the value of those green instruments that are being put out into the market. Involvement of many stakeholders and that lack of coordination. You'll notice that this being a very collaborative space and industry, you tend to have very many players, even if it's just putting out one bond. Like what we saw with the Acorn Green Bond, it was such a multifaceted participation that sometimes may have a lack of coordination. But those are the challenges. But I wish to note that those are some of those challenges we are really working towards them, especially in the policy and regulatory space. Collaborative efforts among all the partners, it's becoming easier, and acceptance from the decision makers, having somebody like the CBK governor on board, having people like the CS for the National Treasury on board, some of these initiatives has really helped our local market accept the benefits of these, help build capacity internally, and I believe we're headed in the right direction. Thank you.
And indeed, like you put it, the capacity is very, very key. And thank you for raising that point. My last question to you is, what are your aspirations about the future of NSC at creating an enabling environment for the growth of sustainable finance in Kenya?
Oh, well, it's great. I mean, in the corporate context, we've picked on sustainability within our corporate strategy, and we have realistic targets that we've put in place for us in the next 5 years to see green instruments that are put out there. We are committed to developing a vibrant green market for this region, and we aim to create an environment that will allow the market to prosper in a very secure and transparent way. I think where we come in is the issue of transparency, is the issue of having access, giving investors access, giving issuers access to the market, and through the NSE, so the issuers and the investors, they have a platform where they can come together and fulfill their green objectives. I think now with COVID-19, it has really helped accelerate the drive towards green instruments, green bonds. I was just reading a report that was put out that said the highest rates of green bonds put out since the existence of green bonds was during the COVID period. People are seeing the need, and it's unfortunate that, you know, as humans, we are pushed to react when some of these situations come. Yet the green bond space has been there for decades, but at least we are getting to see more uptake, and the NS is very committed to the green agenda, and we're working with various partners, some of whom are here with us on this call, just to drive this conversation further. And we are very hopeful that in the coming years, we will have more green bonds in this space, more green instruments. We'll have green and ESG indices that investors can even invest in, and really just growing that entire circular economy. Thank you, Tondirai.
Amazing, amazing. I think we will come back to you when we address the general questions from the public. But thank you very much for your submissions. We are taking it over to Dr. Khaled a bit. Again, looking at some of the cost implications, like Waitera alluded, but with a focus on Islamic finance. In particular, Doc, there are some instances whereby we have observed that in trying to raise some sukuk bonds, for example, we have had to have some upfront costs. I don't know what would be your comments on the cost implications on raising green sukuks and other financing instruments that you may comment on.
Thank you again. Maybe what I would like to say before responding to the question is that maybe we need a paradigm shift in our worldview. How do we see things when you talk of costs? What does it mean, really? Is it an economical benefit or costs, or long-term or short-term costs that are involved? So the more we understand the cost here, is the more clearer maybe the answer will be. Because sometimes an extra dollar may not be a cost to me if I was to compare vis-a-vis maybe a sustainable development outcome of what I'm going to do. So if I'm going to put an extra shilling or an extra dollar for a particular product, or maybe invest in a sustainable company maybe, or that promotes sustainable development, it will be maybe cost short-term, yes, in terms of what I spend, but long-term, it will be beneficial to me. So sukuk, like any other financial product outside there, they are actually competing equally or on equal foot with any other financial product there. So it is the market that will decide how much is it going to cost and how much are they expecting in terms of return. But basically, since I've said it is about whatever you are having in your mind in regards to investment, then that will be very important. Maybe from an Islamic perspective is that if I was to invest in Nairobi Stock Exchange, I'll be limited with the number of companies that I'll put my shilling in there. Islamic finance does not give me that luxury of investing in each and every company. It has to be aligned with the values of Islamic finance, number one. Number two, maybe what is important here is to understand whatever we are doing as people who promote sustainable finance or sustainable development is that, are we able to measure what we are promoting vis-a-vis the economical value of it? Having said that, I had actually mentioned before that Islamic finance has inherent values in terms of sustainable finance. Many countries have done that with less cost. If it is extra cost, then it is upon that particular market that decide how much is it going to cost. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. I will throw a question to Nuru. Nuru, we are still on trying to analyze the issue around costs, but we want to start from a data perspective. Then you can give a general comment on what you think about the cost implications, like Doc has alluded. Excuse me. Where is much of the data coming, ESG data? Where is much of it coming from, and who is collecting the data? Nuru, may you come in?
Thanks so much. So I think, yeah, this issue of data is a good one. So data is coming from everywhere. It's coming at the institutional level when you see institutions publish their integrated reports, their sustainability reports. It's coming at the industry level when trade organizations like KBA, CAM issue research. KEPSA, for example, has done a very good job working with the National Treasury and other partners to issue the climate finance landscape reports that was supported by GNI+. Very good piece of work. At the regulatory level, when you look at papers like and statistics like the Kenya Bureau of Statistics did a fantastic job 2 years ago when they published the county level GDP. So data is everywhere. And it's really just about really synthesizing that to really see those signals and the indicators. Regarding the cost, I want to speak to that aspect about the green bond market, why we're not seeing as much activity on the continent. And I think it's not just about capacity. I think what we are finding is there's just a lot of competition for climate-related investment on the continent. East Africa, for example, is probably one of the greatest beneficiaries of impact investment on the continent. When you see the number of DFIs, more than 20 DFIs are active in East Africa, more than almost 200 impact investors are active in East Africa, directly providing venture capital, equity to potential issuers of green bonds. So it's not just about capacity, it's also because there's just so much interest. The returns are very high when you look at the coupon rates, when you look at the return on investment to investors, including investors in banks, the returns are so high that you see that there's a lot of competition. So I think that's probably why we're not seeing so many green bonds being issued on the market. Also, when you look at our pension sector, it's somewhat developing. Where there I mentioned South Africa, they have a very advanced pension sector. And when you look at the horizon and the investment mandates of the pension sector in South Africa, it's very different from Kenya. So you see how trustees are incentivized to look for and seek out truly sustainable investment opportunities. And that's why you see more activity in the bond market there. So I think it's about really looking at the totality of the market and really understanding the policy, the enabling environment, the capacity challenges that we're facing. Of course, the cost, as Wadera rightly pointed, is immaterial towards that. I think what we're seeing is a very strong trend around green credit lines. I think nearly all banks, well, I should say the majority of banks have green credit lines. You just have to look at statistics from the Central Bank of Kenya in terms of how banks are lending and the top sectors that banks are lending to in Kenya: manufacturing, agriculture, and trade. And all those three areas have an environmental aspect, a social aspect, and certainly an economic aspect. So I think there's a lot of activity going on. The data is everywhere. So it's about really just synthesizing all that information so you can make an informed position. I don't know if that answered your question.
Very, very well, Nuru. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I am moving over to Sandy Okoth. Sandy, there's a question in the chat box which says, is there a border between sustainable finance and corporate social responsibility?
Yeah, I think if you look at sustainable finance, sustainable finance looks at the whole financial aspect, the whole financial system aspect, where we want our financing to be integrated on ESG. But then when you look at the corporate responsibility, most of it is very social. From what I have seen, I don't know, maybe colleagues in the panel can also add to this. For example, if you look at the M-Pesa Foundation, they focus on education and very social aspects of the whole ESG integration. So sustainable finance is more holistic as compared to the social corporate responsibility, which might ideally just focus on social aspects of ESG. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Sandy. Coming to Judith. Judith, we have been talking about ESG data, and we previously spoke about leading indicators that we have already gone to set as organizations, and how do we then measure these ESG activities qualitatively to facilitate for meaningful analysis? What would be your take on that?
Thank you for that. So of late, of course, we have seen there are quite a number of science-based targets that have come up, which of course organizations can be able to use to give a proper track and data. Of course, there's the risk, the normal for banking, which is the risk analysis. And of course, we also have the credit analysis, which is done, which of course then gives an indication of whether this person can borrow or not, or what categorization they can be put into. But also what we have done from a banking perspective is to go a step ahead and do the climate assessment financial instrument. So we have adopted that because what we are hoping is that even as you do the environmental and social governance for clients, we can also be able to guide them on areas of green lending that they can also expand on within their portfolios. So this has been a good one because, as you said, when you take care of risk, we should also look at risks also as opportunities. So where we see opportunities in climate financing, where we see opportunities to grow their green component within their sector, then we are able to engage with those customers so that then they can be able to improve on that. But you need to work with, of course, the climate assessment financial instrument, CAFI tool, which then guides you and enables you then to know what is the potential of this client and then, of course, how to guide this client. The other component, of course, is the book. So how much then do you do in terms of environmental and social due diligence, so which you can measure in terms of numbers, and you can also measure in terms of amount. That is a bit straightforward. But the component of the disclosures in terms of the CAFI tool, the PCAF tool, which have come of recent, those have been a very good enablers just to ensure that then we get very good smart targets, just to enable us see how do we progress and then what is the potential and then how are we able to progress forward. So the good thing, the parameters are there. Of course, the problem when they become too many, they can confuse everyone. So again, standardization is important so that then it can guide the financial sector. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that succinct response. I'm going to Dr. Khaled. Coming back to the issue of market imperfections and regulatory arbitrage, there's a question within the chat box which is reading, could it be true that the whole family of Islamic finance products creates market imperfections and regulatory arbitrage? in the financial sector, which may impede the sustainable finance agenda?
That is a perfect question. And it is part of a misconception that is outside there in regards to Islamic finance. Let me just put it this way. I've already mentioned about the principle of Islamic finance, and basically this includes prohibition of interest, mutual risk sharing or sharing of risk, sharing of profit, mutual risk and promotion of profit sharing, and also social considerable or social consideration in terms of not investing in certain economic activities. Now, if you look at these principles, it is very far from market imperfection, unless I have a different understanding of what market imperfection is concerned. Coming to regulatory arbitrage, it is important to understand that these principles that are in Islamic finance are universal in nature, and most of these religion beliefs promote this kind of things. The other thing is that if I was to take now practically and put it this way, we have seen the issuance of sukuk, let's say in the continent. The first country that issued sukuk was South Africa. It has nothing to do with regulatory arbitrage here. It is predominant capitalist economy. They issued a sovereign sukuk in 2014 worth $500 million. Recently, I think 2018, they have issued internally or local issuance of 200 million rand with the local currency. It has nothing to do with regulatory arbitrage, as been alluded. Now, maybe let me bring it closer in our landscape here, Kenya. The first institution, the banking sector, that actually introduced Islamic banking was Barclays Bank back in 2006. And the majority shareholder, you'll agree with me, has nothing to do with Islam. It's a multinational company, followed by KCB, Kenya Cooperative Bank, which majority shareholder has nothing to do with regulatory arbitrage here. Basically, it is the way we see things, and once you get an opportunity, regardless of the underlying belief, let's say, you'll have to take it. In different jurisdictions, maybe they are named differently. You'll find country like Turkey, it is being named participatory finance. Other countries, they will name it ethical finance. It's the way they label it. So basically, if you look at it objectively and see the value that it creates as an alternative, rather than seeing it as imperfection, you will have thought of it as an additional product or additional vehicle that will help you to sort out your issues, rather than seeing it subjectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. I would love to take another question from the general panel to Waitera. Waitera, from your view, what are most industries doing collectively to achieve sustainable finance? And just to add on to that question, how have you observed the risk of greenwashing in these activities?
So what's happening globally is very similar to what is happening here locally. It's just that they are the front runners. They started this process a long time ago, and it's what we're seeing is it's very collaborative. Something we have noticed is a difference maybe between the African context and the larger global economy is the push by investors for these green instruments, the push by the investors for more transparency, and the push by investors for that guidance on this is how we are going to use the funds, which is ideally the labeling of the product and what then leads to greenwashing. So I think that's where the discrepancy is that there's that push from the investors, especially institutional investors globally, for more green instruments to be put out, for the desire and the urge that they want to invest more in the green instruments. However, it's the same story across the globe in terms of what governments and what regulators are trying to achieve in this space, trying to also looking towards the policies and the investor protection to deal with the issues around greenwashing. As I mentioned earlier, yes, as the sustainable space continues to increase, there will definitely also be an increase in the cases of greenwashing that you will hear. So it is for the regulatory space to try and come up with very tightened policies and regulations, so that can be that can be dealt with as and when it arises.
Thank you very much for that response. I am going to Nuru another question from the chat panel. KBA has been pushing for sustainable banking, and what has been the response from stakeholders, and what's the way forward in your view?
Sure, thanks so much. So depending on the dimension you're looking at and the indicators you're looking at, we are seeing some really good progress. So first I'll start on the reporting aspect. KBA published the report. I've put the link in the chat. We published a report in February that was based on a voluntary report by the banks, where we were trying to see where are banks at in terms of their realization of the sustainable finance principles that were introduced about 8 years ago. So really to understand where are you there, and also where are you in terms of the SDGs and reporting. And we were very happy to find that about 81% of the respondents indicated that they are beginning to track climate, general environmental and governance related indicators on their portfolios. And about 50% of them were reporting these indicators at the board level. So, and this is a jump from, remember I mentioned the few 3 or 4 banks in the market that were signatories to the Equator Principles, so they were doing this anyway. So over the past 5 or so years, we're seeing a great improvement in terms of that. In terms of lending activity, the climate finance landscape report I mentioned has found that banks again also are leading in terms of lending towards climate related investment. And again, a lot of that is what we've talked about today through the work of the impact investors and the development finance community on the continent, and particularly in Kenya in this case. So we are seeing a lot more activity. Perhaps we want to see more purposeful activity, more innovation. There's an interesting project that KBA is undertaking in partnership with the Kenya Climate Innovation Center and Financial Sector Deepening. It's a blended finance project. Blended finance is a growing area. I think it's the next green bond space. I think a lot of people are really engaging in this area because of the potential to lower transaction cost and really collaborate and partner on various aspects. So we're seeing more blended finance interest, blended finance projects. AFDB has done some really good work around that as well. So I think overall we're seeing some good activity. So I'll point you to the report on that was published by KBA, and then also the climate landscape report. Thanks. I don't know, did that cover everything you were looking for?
Sure, Nuru, you managed to cover the good bit. Okay. I would actually want to ask Waitira in the next round around sustainability reports. So for now, let me take it to Sandy. Sandy, we were talking about integrating our sustainable finance to our particular local activities, and I would just want to ask around the possibility of an emergence where it comes to African reporting standards. What would be your comment on Africa developing sustainable finance standards that speak to the African environment? If you may go ahead and comment.
Thank you for that question. I think Africa is actually awash with a lot of sustainable finance opportunities, and we have the tendency of looking at the global north and trying to replicate what is happening. But what we have seen in the market is that we are trying to domesticate and come up with our own policies, as even Nuru alluded to earlier. The Kenya, the SFI principles for Kenya, are very specific for this market. And from the work that we are doing, especially at WWF, we are trying to ensure that we create an enabling condition and an enabling environment for sustainable finance to flourish. And we are working with, the huge development finance institutions in Africa, like the AFDB, who are currently implementing, their high five strategy. And we are trying to tell them that, look, we have all these opportunities that you guys are looking to tap into, but then, we have to ensure that we standardize and localize and domesticate some of this, the principles and the guidelines that, we are pushing for adoption throughout in Africa. So, these conversations are actually very much alive. And if you look at the Kenyan landscape, sustainable finance came about through the green economy policy and strategy. And if you look at the wider African continent, Tanzania has already kicked off discussions. Mozambique is implementing a natural capital strategy. These policies and strategies are being developed, and what will happen is that once everyone agrees that there's need to transition Africa to a kind of a green economy setup, and a green economy setup can only be achieved through sustainable financing, then we'll start to see the domestication of some of these policies. Individual countries will come up with their own based on their needs and based on the kind of agenda that the government of the day is running. But then, the huge development finance institutions that are funding some of these initiatives will also come up with, some of the policies and standards which, will be adopted all across the board. So, conversations are ongoing. We are working very closely with AFDB, as I mentioned, and we are hoping to see that, this standardization will come sooner rather than later. Over.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Thank you. I am going to Waitera. Waitera, where do you see, from a regulatory perspective, where do you see reporting in annual reports going from a regulatory perspective, and of course from the companies or from the banks' perspective, getting into the future?
Well, definitely, like I mentioned earlier, investors are looking for more non-financial information. So there is that growth and that slow momentum building up towards putting in sustainability reports within the annual reports. Others are putting them as standalone reports for companies that are, started the process earlier on and are more advanced within this ESG reporting. But our hope is that through the ESG disclosure guidelines that we put out last month and that are still up and open for public review and comment, we'll be able to help and handhold organizations and listed companies more so on how to report, because that has been a major challenge. And that's why you find some companies are indeed, they have initiatives around the sustainability space. There is some kind of reporting going around within their financial reports, but it's not it's not structured and it's not based on any guidance or any policy. So there is growth. It is slow. Currently, there are only 5 companies out of the 65 listed companies that have sustainability reports as standalone documents. KCB Bank is one of them here with Judith, and we are using their learnings. We are using them to come and sort of talk to the other industry players to come and tell them that it's not an onerous task. It's it's mining that financial information and putting it in and putting out your story in a sense that is speaking more around the environmental, social, and governance elements, because that is what investors want to know. Investors want to know what you're doing to help mitigate climate risk. Investors want to know corporate governance matters within your institutions, gender matters. How are you addressing disability? How are you addressing relevant issues within the industries you work for? So through the disclosure guidelines that we've put out, we've mapped it out to be very realistic to our local context. And it's very easy for a listed entity in, say, the banking industry, in the energy industry, to mine it out and say, within our space, we will focus more on the climate, the climate work that we are doing. In our space, we will talk about social impacts of our business and things that we are doing, say, towards, water resourcing and recycling. So it's a very good tool, and I would urge everybody on this call to have a look at it. I can post the link up onto the chat, and just to see how that disclosure is going to be very helpful for both listed and unlisted entities, and people are now starting to appreciate, based also off of what investors are asking. So indeed, we will get to see more and more sustainable reports being put out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Waitera. Thank you. I want to put focus on Dr. Khaled and Judith. I'm going to ask one question, but we'll start with Dr. Khaled. Dr. Khaled, from an Islamic finance perspective, how strict have we been on the market to ensure compliance? And the same question will again go to Judith in terms of how you guys have been strict in terms of lending policies. Over to you, Dr. Khaled.
Thank you. Basically, as far as our market is concerned, or any other practice of Islamic finance, let me just give an example of banking sector. When you do have an Islamic finance or a Sharia compliant financial institution, basically you do have two levels of governance. An ordinary governance, whereby you do have a structure that governs any corporate, and additional Sharia board, basically at the board level, whereby any product you are going to offer or any statement you're going to give out in terms of how compliant it is, and to ensure that it is compliant, it must go through a Sharia board. Having said that, at managerial level, we do have Sharia managers who basically will go through a product to ensure that it is compliant with Sharia, take it to the board level for its approval, then thereafter it can go out to the market. And now, if you were to look at these two levels of governance, which are basically unique in terms of ensuring compliance, then you will understand how it is when you are developing a product. You will not just come out there and say, I do have a Sharia compliant product without having such structures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. I think Judith, you can make a follow-up.
Thank you. So what I would say is that, of course, as an industry, we know it's still voluntary, but for us, what we do is to ensure that, number one, every employee, of course, has it on their performance indicators for the year. So every year we do give updated data on what is expected on each line item from every division. And so we measure that. So it's part of their performance, and therefore end of the year, it contributes towards your overall performance score. So that has enabled to have it entrenched across board. Secondly, we also make sure that it's also integrated into the overall strategy of the organization. So this then helps it to be monitored, because once it's part of the strategic objectives, then it's monitored monthly to show whether there's progress or something is lagging behind or what needs to be done, so that then it can be implemented. And of course, we also have leadership training from the leadership perspective. The board is also trained and updated annually on what is happening on that space, on sustainability. What are the new things that have come up? What are the things that you're going to be implementing going forward, so that they're also on board. And And when we have to bring things to the board for approval in terms of even credit approvals, because of the understanding and the orientation that they have, then it becomes easier for them to make the necessary approvals, especially towards climate financing and also just increasing our green lending portfolio. So those are some of the initiatives that we have done internally, which have worked well for us to ensure the mainstreaming and integration holistically to sustainability and the sustainable development goals in the organization.
Thank you very much. I would love to come to Nuru. Nuru, we saw a question that is talking about how far the financial sector seems to be taking in matters of sustainable finance as compared to other sectors. We will not only focus on manufacturing, but which sectors do you see leading the pack at the moment, and in terms of just their response, which ones do you think have potential to lead in terms of adopting sustainable finance?
Thanks. Yeah, so in the chat, I was mentioning that I think the manufacturing sector in Kenya has really done a good job through the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and they've been consistent at it in terms of advancing programs to help bridge that knowledge gap. But also to bring in some finance to support manufacturers, and the reason why I think the manufacturing sector really has been leading in this space is because when you think about the history of our country and how our various economic sectors developed and grew, manufacturing has been around for quite a while. Maybe even local manufacturing might almost predate our republic. So a lot of these manufacturers have been operating for decades. Their equipment is terminating, is getting old. And a lot of the new equipment that's being produced now is all aligned to efficiency, energy conservation, even the technologies and the processes, things like cogeneration of electricity and things like this that manufacturers are now mainstreaming. All these practices are now catching up with the manufacturers that have been around for a while. So they have to upgrade their systems. They have to address issues around inconsistent energy from the main grid. So they're trying to get off grid just because of survival. So I think the manufacturing sector has done some commendable work in really helping their members understand how to operate more sustainably. Of course, we have seen environmental policies come through, like the plastic ban. Right now, there are issues around water conservation that's coming up that's affecting manufacturers. KBA, in partnership with FSD, is doing another interesting project supported by PwC to really understand the environmental compliance risks that manufacturers are facing, for example. So I think manufacturing is doing very well. There's also a lot of investment opportunity in the manufacturing sector. I think the other sector that's coming up, we're beginning to hear and see examples of electric vehicles in Kenya and also in the region. So I think the transportation sector is another sector to start paying attention to. And then, of course, agriculture, because we have such a strong, and again, because of the history of our economy, such a strong horticultural export market. And when you look at the global trends around fair trade and responsible sourcing, responsible forestry, you cannot be in the forestry and agricultural space in a big way without really paying attention to issues around climate change adaptation and mitigation. So I think I would say manufacturing, agriculture, transportation. But in terms of the sectors that are really very strategic and purposeful about what we are seeing from a policy all the way to practice, I think manufacturing would be it, probably followed by banking and then the rest. That's what I would say. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very, very much, Nuru. At this point in time, allow me to say many thanks to our panelists. This marks the end of our question and answer segment. And thank you to everyone who participated in this conversation. Very, very much. Thank you. I will pass it over to Dr. Fatoki and then Dr. Christine Simiu for the final and closing remarks. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much for that beautiful session, Tunderia. We appreciate your effort at maintaining the times allocated for it, and you leaving whatever you are doing to be part of this is highly appreciated. I may not be able to give the vote of thanks, although Dr. Simiu was supposed to give it, but she's having some connection, and the dean has already indicated his readiness to do that, so that at the end of the day, you know how serious we are on this course. Now, may I invite Dr. Mushiri, please? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Fatoki. Once again, congratulations to you and the team, especially for the good work you have done, putting together this elegant team of experts from all over the continent and even in the diaspora. It is quite a feat, and I would thank you for taking all this time and making it happen. I'm so grateful to Todera Njowera for your moderation and the way you have carried the whole for discussion and conducted it. I guess because of time, we have not been able to have quite some discussions. I believe in the next time we'll have a little bit more of discussants who will be able to put everything together. I liked the questions that were going on the chat and the response. The panelists were actually very much engaged. I want to thank Sunday Okoth, the regional sustainable finance expert, Worldwide Fund of Kenya. Thank you for making your time. Thank you, Judith Cindy Othiabo from KCB Group. Dr. Khalid Mohammed, thank you for actually elucidating a lot on the Islamic finance. Judith, I think it looks like KCB is quite ahead on the part of sustainable finance. And I think then there is great hope if what we are hearing is true and is going to happen. I believe Sunday also has elucidated quite a bit of what the whole aspect of sustainable finance, and especially working with the Worldwide Fund, how to bring this together. I thank also Nuru Mogambi from she's the public affairs at I forgot my glasses at KRA.
Kenya Bankers Association.
I can't see properly. So my apologies if you see me skipping, missing out on the names. I'm happy. I want to thank Nuru for your just a minute. Yeah, I want to thank Nuru for your contribution. I have a gadget here that keeps on misbehaving. I want to feel like throwing it away. Okay, so and then thank you, Nuru, for your contribution. Actually, I saw it very active on the chat and responding, including giving us some links, and also Waithera Moai Ireri from the NSE. It's great to have you around. Also, Professor Amaechi, although he had to drop out, I think he had issues with connection. I want also to thank my colleagues, specifically Dr. Fatoki and Dr. Rotich, and also Christine, Dr. Nanjala, who also worked hard to make this happen and pushing it. Thank you so much. Bona Toderai. Here in Kenya, we call you Bana. That means Mr. Toderai. Thank you for making time for us. And I know you guys have got busy schedules. All of you have seen your senior managers, directors, and so to get a piece of your time to come into such a forum is indeed a privilege. For our students and our participants, I noticed that we had students, we have alumni, we have people from other places. We had all people, quite a number of people from many areas who are participating. I think we were hitting 300, and I was worried that now Zoom may not even be able to accommodate. But I was happy to see that we are also recording live on Facebook, so I think we can revisit this. How I thank you guys for supporting this initiative. Be on the lookout for more. We are working more. There is more that is coming from KCA. I think in September, we've got a forum for another forum. This is going to be a public lecture. We'll be letting you know about it. And we look forward to keeping engaging with you. We look forward to maintaining this relationship, especially with our partners in the industry who are participating. Okay, and Nuru, Waithera, Khalid, Judith, Sunday. I mean, we want to get in touch, and our orientation right now in the College of Business is how we can link every program that we have with the industry, so that we don't teach our students just what is in the books, but we want them to get exposure. So one of the challenges I've thrown to my lecturers and to myself too is for every lesson that you are teaching, can you make sure you'll reach out to somebody in the industry with an expertise in at least one topic to come and teach one lecture. Even if they have never taught, let them come and say what they are doing, so that the students also may have that energy. Now, when we take such a discussion of sustainable finance to our students, to our master students, to our colleagues, to these young people, I mean, they are the future. And so you expect that they will pick it up and they will carry out the challenge to move it forward. And when they will be able, and what I've realized, is that the young people actually have got this energy of picking things and running with them very quickly. So I'm sure from these forums, we are going to see great things happening. So thank you so much. We are grateful also to our VC who graced this occasion. We just approached him and he said, yeah, I want to be there. And now we are happy. Unfortunately, because of commitment, he could not be with us throughout, but we are thankful that he made time for it. So thank you guys and colleagues and our guests. Unfortunately, now with this being of remote, we are not able to buy you a cup of tea. We are not able to give you a piece of chapati and enjoy some lunch together, but we wish you all the best. Enjoy your afternoon, and we are looking forward to continuing with this connection. Thank you, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.